What is up, guys? It's Danny27 here, bringing you some Battlefield 3 today, and this is going to be episode 2 of Never Used That Before, and we're going to be looking at the QBB-95 today, which is the bigger brother of the gun we did last week, which was the QBZ-95B. So the QBB-95, the one we're looking at this week, is an LMG for the support class rather than the carbine for the engineer class that we looked at last week. So they come in the same family, which means they have the same iron sights and some of the same kind of look about them, aesthetics, I suppose you could say. So, as I said, this is an LMG for the support class, and I don't actually play with the support class very much at all. I think I've had a few games with it, and I don't really like it. I think the guns are too big. I don't like the LMG. I occasionally use support if I want ammo, but I'll run with the MP7 or run with a PDW because I'm not a fan of the LMGs. I think they're too slow moving. I like to be able to run around. So, looking at this, I hadn't actually used this gun whatsoever. I think the last gun I put like 25 seconds into it, so not much at all. But this one I hadn't actually touched, so I thought I'd give it a go and keep it running in the same family. So next week I'll probably end up doing the sniper rifle that's also in the family of the little QB-95 or something, that I don't know. However, this is not about that, this is about this gun. So, it does have a similar feel to the gun we talked about last week. The iron sights are the same, and as if you remember, I didn't like them. I absolutely hated them. Some people think they're fine. I personally don't. I can lose targets in them. I can't actually seem to hit things very often. So, first thing I'd advise you to do is get a sight. However, obviously you get the first sight at 10 kills, but then the next sight doesn't actually come till 50 kills, and I'm not a fan of the zoomed in sights. I prefer the either iron sights, or I prefer the Cobra sight or the red dot sight, seeing as they're not too zoomed in. Sometimes I might go for the hollow sight, but I don't want anything more than a 1.5 times zoom. I don't want to go into the 3.4 times zoom or the, I think, 4 times zoom that it is. So that you don't actually unlock one of those sights until 70 kills, so I did have to do a bit of grinding with this gun to get there, and it wasn't fun. I'm not going to lie to you. As I said before, I don't actually like LMGs, and this gun didn't really change my opinion on them. I'm not saying it's a bad gun, but it's definitely not for me. So if you want to get into the statistics of the gun, the ammunition capacity is 75 rounds plus 1 in the magazine, so that's 76 rounds overall. If the reload time is about 3.8 seconds if you got a bullet left in the gun, or 4.6 seconds when the gun is empty, which is it's slow, but it's what you'd expect for an LMG. It's not the slowest by far, but it's roundabout right for, especially for the rate of fire, which is only 650 rounds per minute, matching the QBZ-95B, the carbine that we looked at last week. So again, I'm going to say it's not the best rate of fire you're ever going to see, and it's a bit on the slow side if I'm honest. I don't find myself being able to hit people before they can turn around and spray me down with that AEK, which I was having a lot of trouble with in the team deathmatch, which, probably thinking back on it, isn't the best game type to be trying out an LMG, but what do you do? It's the easiest way to get the kills and unlock, so that's why I used it. And yeah, as I was saying, so the 650 rounds per minute isn't the best gun or best rate of fire in the world. It's a little bit on the slow side. Obviously, in comparison, it's pretty average, maybe towards the lower end of average, but there are guns in the support class that do fire slower, excluding all the PDWs, of course. So in terms of recoil, it does have a 0.2 recoil to the right, a 0.3 to the left, and a 0.37 up and down. So it's not a terrible recoil, it's manageable, really manageable. However, I would suggest maybe putting the foregrip on. It doesn't do a huge amount of difference, but I think it does enough to the side-to-side recoil to make it worthwhile actually putting it on. As I said last week, the QBZ actually had a built-in foregrip. This one doesn't. However, if you are looking at using the bipod, I personally don't like using the bipod. I don't like to be stuck down to one position for too long, but it does actually deploy faster than any of the other guns that have bipods, which is why it's a little bit weird, but I mean, I suppose DICE have done it for a reason. So, looking at the damage model of the gun, it's pretty average. It follows the same damage model as all the other guns that are kind of equivalent to it. Obviously there's the exceptions like the PKP, which have a different damage model, but the QBB-95 does stay with the rest of them. So it does a maximum of 25 damage up to 8 meters, which then drops off to 18.4 meters. 18.4 points of damage, sorry, at 50 meters. So pretty average, a little bit better than the assault class, but I mean, you do have more rounds in the chamber. As I said, you get 76 with this one, so it's not terrible at all. But it does follow the rest of them. It doesn't have anything standing out for the gun. I think the gun is pretty average. I don't think there'd be many people rushing to use the QBB as their go-to weapon for the support class. That seems to be the PKP, which only has 50 rounds per minute slower and a lot higher damage model, ridiculously high damage model, which makes me think as to why so many people are using that, seeing as I've never actually looked at these stats for the support class. As I said, don't actually use it. But back to the QBB-95. In terms of attachment, as I said, I would use a sight. That can be anything of your preference. I mean, if you like the iron sights, use those. The sight isn't so much of an attachment, more of as a personal preference for the weapon. I would suggest probably using the foregrip maybe, and maybe if you're not using the foregrip, or maybe go with the laser sight, because it does actually improve the hip fire quite dramatically, and it's not a terrible gun when hip firing, apart from the slow rate of fire, but the laser sight almost makes up for that, making the gun a lot more accurate. But you can also, the gun doesn't come with the vanilla game. You'll have to unlock it by having Back to Karkand expansion pack, and you have to complete the assignment Let It Rain, which is to get 20 kills with a light machine gun and 2 mortar kills. So it's not too difficult, just get on one of the early LMGs that aren't too difficult, get you 20 kills. There's not too many to get. The mortar kills can be a bit of a pain, but if you're defending the B-bomb site on Sane Crossing on the first set of bases, just keep spamming in there on mortar shells, you're going to get kills after kills. So that's a quick little tip there to get your 2 mortar kills, and any more if you really want them. So all in all, I'd say that's probably about it for the QBB. I wouldn't say it's a great weapon. I wouldn't advise using it if you were using the support class and you're like, oh, what gun do I use? I wouldn't suggest the QBB, I'd probably suggest the PKP. But it's all down to personal preference, so that's the gun, and I hope you enjoyed, guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you in the next video.